Welcome back, everyone, of Prospect Profiles here in the Sacramento Kings MyLeague and NBA 2K19, where we go over players that the Kings could use in this year's NBA draft. We'll be looking at wings today. We know that the Kings will be picking number 2 overall now that the draft lottery has passed, and very well could draft one of the players in this video with one of those picks. Someone who will not be drafted number 2 overall, but could be a solid value pick in the second round, is Jalen Horde out of Wake Forest. He made some nice dunks in this game against Oregon. He's pretty athletic, but he's also very raw, so someone who I could see going in the G League for a year, developing there, and then being a pretty good role player. Next up is going to be Louis King out of Oregon. He made some very nice high-flying plays in this game. He can dunk it. He was zipping and zapping across the court. He has a giant burst of energy. He's very athletic. He also has a pretty talented jump shot, and I would say his offensive and scoring are a little bit better than Jalen Horde, which is why I think he will go higher than Horde. Now we have 3 players, all of whom projected to go in the top 5, starting with R.J. Barrett. Many people think he's the number 1 prospect in this class, and for good reason. It's the Duke product. He can play both shooting guard and small forward, and he can do it all. He's an insane athlete, but he's a pretty solid scorer. He's a pretty good distributor, and he can play defense. He can really do it all. Next up, we have another Duke Blue Devil, and that is Cameron Reddish. Reddish quite isn't the athlete that R.J. Barrett is, but he's a better scorer, I would say, right now than Barrett, and he has a pretty talented jump shot, probably the best jump shot of the top prospects. He will likely be a top 5, maybe even top 3 pick, probably not number 1, since the Phoenix Suns don't need any more small forwards, but I would not be shocked if the Kings end up getting Cameron Reddish. I think he's a really, really good player, and he fits what the Kings could use. Next up, we will look at Duke's rival North Carolina as we see it, Nasir Little. Little is a very talented player. He's very clutch. He had some clutch moments this year for UNC. Probably going to be a top 5 pick. His jump shot is okay. He's an insane athlete. He's a pretty good playmaker. But he needs to work a little bit on his scoring. He's a good scorer, but he's not a great scorer. And he needs to work on his defense. But other than that, I think he's a really good player. Next up, we have Tyler Harrow from Kentucky. Harrow from the other side, am I right? No, just kidding. He's probably going to be a late first-round pick. He is a good shooter. Certainly is not the athlete that R.J. Barrett or Nasir Little or someone like that is, but he could be a very solid role player. He is an extremely good jumper, and I think he could be a nice playmaker and perimeter defender, and could be a nice value pick for a team looking for that. Next up is going to be another 3-and-D player, probably a little more athletic than Harrow, from UCLA. That is Chris Wilkes. I believe he is a sophomore for the Bruins. He's pretty athletic. He has a good jump shot. He's a good scorer. He led the Bruins in points per game this season, and he's a pretty talented 3-and-D player. I don't think he will be a lottery pick, but I think he has a chance to. Next up, we will look at the Indiana Hoosier, probably going to be a top 10, maybe even top 5 pick, and his name is Romeo Langford. Langford is a really talented scorer, led, obviously, the Indiana Hoosiers in scoring, and led the Big Ten among freshmen in scoring, and for good reason. He is an insane athlete as well, and he's a really good offensive player. He does need to work on his defense, but he could be a really, really good player. Probably not Kevin Durant, but I guess a smaller and less dominant version in a way. Next up, we will look at the Asian sensation, the Japanese beast from Gonzaga. His name is Rui Hachimura. He is a projected late first-round pick. He is pretty raw, but he has been improving in college the past couple of years, and I've really liked his growth and development at Gonzaga, which I think is good and will translate to the NBA. Maybe could use a year in the G League, or maybe just half a year in the G League, and I think he can be a really good player. Next up, we have probably the best international player in this year's draft. That is Sekou Doumbouya. He is French. He can play small forward and power forward. He is extremely raw, but he also has a lot of upside. One of the highest ceilings in this year's draft. Probably going to be a top 10, probably not top 5, but maybe top 10 pick. He's pretty athletic, but he can't do much else, at least compared to a lot of other NBA players. The last guy we're going to look at is another European player. He is from Croatia, and his name is Luka Samanic. Probably going to be a mid to late first-round pick, has a pretty good jump shot. Not super athletic, but he's not athletic. Pretty talented on the defensive end of the board, or the defensive end of the ball as well. So that'll do it for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Next episode will be the NBA draft, which will likely be uploaded tomorrow, so stay tuned.